You were the U.S. ambassador to Israel. So let's say you were in that position today. What would you do?
I've been there before. Literally, I mean, I was there at the outbreak of the Second Intifada, uh, where the circumstances were better than today because there actually had been a political process. There is no political process that can kind of give parties, the governments on both sides, a reason to try to bring this under control. That political process doesn't exist now. So what would I do now, our ambassador? I would be going back to Washington and saying, look, this situation is terrible. We have only one shot, and that's to get the Palestinian Authority back on its feet and the Palestinian security forces operating again where they should be in Nablus and Jenin. And we really need to work with Egypt, Jordan, and Israel to make that happen. And the Israelis will need to understand that they're going to have to do things that they haven't been prepared to do, including curbing settlement activity, curbing the actions of settler vigilantes, and helping the Palestinian Authority, giving it greater credibility amongst its own people. And that means giving it the ability to function, giving it the funds that Israel has been withholding, and giving it territory, more territory to control, if they're prepared to take on responsibilities that they should have for exercising control over the territory and people that are supposed to be under their control.
I do want to get your reaction to some of the responses to the situation. First, are that reports say that UN experts have said that the military option in Jenin, or operation in Jenin could amount to a war crime. What's your response to that?
Well, I'm not an international legal expert, so the definition of war crimes is not something that's in my area of expertise. But I just look at the reality of what happened here. As I said, 12 Palestinians were killed. It appears that most, if not all, were militants involved in use of force, and therefore, in a sense, legitimate targets. There was an outflow of Palestinian residents of the refugee camp. It looks like about 3,000 of them. I assume that they will go back to their homes quickly. If not, that could be a problem. But I think that all sides are keen to try to make that happen. There was damage, a lot of damage done to the infrastructure in the refugee camp. I don't know whether that tantamount to a war crime. I doubt it. But that's going to be rebuilt. The UAE has already pledged $15 million to that, and so that process will, I guess, get underway. So, in the end, I don't think there's a huge amount of damage, or I mean, there were a considerable number of civilians wounded, but as far as can be told, maximum one or two were dead. So I think that it's hard to see this was a war crime.
I do now want to talk about two responses, one being from the White House, the other being from a Democratic member of Congress. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said that the Biden administration supports, quote, Israel's security and the right to defend its people against Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and other terrorist groups. But then in a tweet about Jenin, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib said this: Congress must stop funding this violent Israeli apartheid regime. What do you think about these two messages?
Well, it's an interesting juxtaposition. So the White House will always say that it supports Israel's right to defend itself. That's kind of standard language for many years now, and a manifestation of the close relationship between allies and an identification with Israel's challenge when it faces these terrorist attacks. After all, we are still engaged in a war on terrorism ourselves, even though it has been reduced somewhat. So that's the kind of standard response, and then to call on all sides to reduce the violence and allow people to go back to their homes and so on. Rashida Tlaib is well known for her support for the Palestinian cause and identification with it, and so her statement is also quite predictable. It doesn't have much support, if any, in Congress, particularly not called for sanctions on Israel in circumstances where it's essentially taking action to defend itself. One can criticize the extent of its actions, but the fact that it's defending itself is something that I think is generally accepted in Congress, which after all is strongly pro-Israel on a bipartisan basis.